Some of you may be coming from retirementwave.com, which talks about relocating overseas, in particular regard to Panama. Others may be coming from middleage.org, where we talk about the effects of aging and how to deal with it successfully. I have a little story I want to share with you today that actually has relevance for both groups and others, I hope. I worked most of my life, some 47 years of it, traveling and living overseas in different nations. I come from the United States of America. It's the same, though, had I come from 50 other countries. When you keep traveling, you keep meeting people, you keep being introduced to new cultures, you learn a great deal. One of the most effective ways I had of learning where people were in their lives and where a country was headed, as it turned out, was just to sit down with folks locally in the nation I was working in at the time and just say to them, tell me about your country, and leave it up to them as to how to go about doing it. Now, all of them spoke a bit about the present time, but they divided generally into two groups. One group would start talking about the past, the glories of the past. It may have been 50 years ago, 150, 500, 2,500. But they would talk about how wonderful things were and how now things just weren't as good, and people didn't give them any respect for what they had done in the past. The other group would talk more about the future. This is where we are now, but this is what we're going to have next year and the year after that. And I think my kids are going to have a better life because of this and another trend. They talked about the future. So you had one focused on the past when they're talking about their own country informally, the other focused on the future. And over 4 decades of doing this, it became fairly clear to me which nation or which group of people were more likely to move forward, to actually make progress. You don't make progress by looking backwards. You have to look forwards. Now, what's true for a nation is true for individuals. Because I would go into a country, Somalia is a good example. There was a tough country. I was working in maternal child health in that country. We were training midwives. And it's a very difficult country to work in if you know anything about it at all. When I was there, not quite as bad as it is today, but a very, very difficult place. But I had some wonderful Somalis who I worked with on my staff, and they looked at the world around them very differently. They talked about where they could go. Some of them had to leave the country in order to find it because it's that difficult in that particular nation. But they succeeded. They moved forward. And I have certainly known people in countries that are a lot more comfortable to live in and a lot more successful than Somalia has ever been, who sit there and they just talk about the past and the former glories. What happens in your life, how you deal with this, is critically important. As I work with people who are growing older, as I have for, again, about 35 years with that, I find that this difference in attitude between looking at the future or the past is a critical in understanding where they are headed and where they're going to be in 5 years or 10 years. Those who sit looking backwards, trying to recreate something that came before, perhaps, that's now gone, just don't seem to make much progress. In fact, they tend to go into decline. Those that are looking forward to something always have something to do, looking forward to the next day, making plans, no matter how old they are. They seem to flourish. They seem to have good, successful, fulfilled lives. If you've spoken to a lot of older people in your life, you may know what I'm talking about. Those that are so depressed and looking backwards, those who are still looking forward and positive, even if they're 85 or 90 years old. It's the difference in the attitude. And that's what I'm talking about right now. Something that R. Buckminster Fuller, he's a philosopher from years ago, put it very nicely. He was asked, why is it that with all the wonderful things coming down the road at us, that people just ignore those and they focus on the negative? And Fuller said, we look at the future through a rearview mirror. We're constantly, too many of us, looking backwards to what has happened instead of forward to what is and will happen. That sort of attitude, well, I can tell you, you don't want to drive a car by looking through the rearview mirror. It's good to look up at it from time to time to be reminded of what's behind you. But you really need to look forward into that future, no matter how difficult it may look right at the moment. There is a way through it, and you're not going to find it looking through that rearview mirror. So it's critical, in my mind, whether you're a nation or whether you're an individual person, and it goes for me too, is to keep looking forward and planning for a future that you can't control, but you have a great deal of influence over. And I want to tell you something. You're watching this video, you're hearing me just go blah, 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 and yet you're here looking at this, hearing this. It's an indication to me right off the bat that you're part of that second group, the part that's looking forward. You're looking for answers. You're looking for something you can do differently in the future. So you're headed in the right direction. And you're headed in the same direction I am. I'm 69 right now. I tell people I'm in my 70th year. I'm actually looking forward to the 70s. I think that could just be the best decade of my life. That's how I'm going to approach it every single day. But it isn't easy. And there are times when it just does not work for me too. We're all on the same journey. We all have to choose a path. I'm encouraging you to consider doing what you're doing right now, to continue doing it. Move forward. Look ahead. Don't get caught staring up at that rearview mirror. You're going to hit something if you do. Move forward, be positive, and no matter how difficult things may be right now, they will get better. It's the only hope you've got of getting them better, and you've started. So keep it up. Thank you.